Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's poppin', fantasy champs? My name's Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always. Poppin' Rick.
What's up?
Oh man, 2 days off of football. I think the show comes out on Thursday or Friday. One of the two.
Yep.
There's no Thursday nights on the starts and sits right now, is there? Nope.
No, I made sure you tried.
Sure. I always try.
I took it off because this is pre-recorded.
Yeah. Anyway,
that is great that we haven't had football in a couple of days, and I'm like, man, we haven't had football in a couple of days. But then I remember we have football tonight.
Very, very excited.
And then you just wait 2 days, and then boom, it's Sunday.
Who you got tonight?
This is pre-recorded. I don't know who's actually going to win, but I bet on the Chargers because it's -5 or +5, whatever. They're the underdogs by 5 points, so if they lose by like a field goal, I'm still good.
There you go. Yeah, I'll take the Chargers too. Even though Mahomes ripped some people's faces off last week.
Yeah, and it's in Kansas City, so I'm like,
let's just roll with it. Why not?
Yeah, let's roll with it. That's what I'm saying.
Should I do a DFS lineup? I did one last week.
Do
it was $6.
Use the $6 and get.
I was hoping. More. At one point, I was at like 300, and I was like, "Oh, it's cool."
That's how it always is.
I told you I wanted to win $7,000 on one this year, and I'm going to make it happen.
Dude,
the problem is how
too.
much money am I going to end up spending to get? But anyway,
$6,000.
As usual on Thursdays, we are going to do our starts and sit show for the week. We'll give you 3 starts of the week, 3 sits of the week, and run through that. We don't have any questions for you, by the way. No questions this week. But before,
no, I forgot to ask the people.
Yeah. Before we jump into our starts and sit show, check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcast platforms, please leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, like, and comment down below any questions you have. Start and sit questions. We'll get to them in the comments. I know a couple of people left comments on our YouTube video last week. And I saw them like 2 hours before the game started.
Oh. And you didn't answer?
No.
I didn't see them, so.
Yeah, so we're failures. But
so this week, though, we will be on top of that, right?
Yeah, definitely, because I wasn't on. He's like, yeah, right, Morgan? Yeah, frick you, bro. Right under the bus.
All right, fine. I'll check it, too.
Anyway, so yeah, we're going to give you our starts and sits. What did we start with last week? Our starts? I don't even remember.
I don't remember either. Did we do one at a time, or did we just do our 3 starts and then our 3 sits? I think that's what we did. I think we just did our 3 starts.
3 starts and then 3 sits. Last year we did one by position. This year we're just doing our top 3 that we would choose, which I think works better than last year. But anyway. All right, so we'll start with the first one, which is Amon-Ra versus Washington. Rick, why don't you tell us why Amon-Ra versus Washington is a start of the week?
Well, first of all, Washington's defense is not great. The Jaguars didn't put up a huge offensive game against them, but there were plays to be made.
The Jacksonville Jaguars got fantasy points against this football.
A decent amount. Yeah. So that should show you. But it's also Amon-Ra last week was a very high-scoring game against the Eagles. But he was still the leading receiver on the Lions with 12 targets, 8 catches for 64 yards. He's not going to be really a big play guy at all. But he's Jared Goff's go-to guy. And I think that's been clear. It was a question in the offseason. Would that still be the case with everybody healthy? But it is on third downs, short yardage plays. He's looking for Amon-Ra. So he's the security blanket. And if he's getting 12 targets, I'm very much okay with starting him every single week in PPR leagues, let alone a good matchup at home. So I think Amon-Ra is a very, very solid start if he's your flex this week.
Yeah, I agree. Over the last, I think it's 6 games or 5 games, he's had 20 plus fantasy points or more. And last week, Christian Kirk had 17.
Yep. So
that should show you. And I think Amon-Ra is a better wide
hey, bro,
receiver
don't
than
hate on Christian Kirk.
Yeah, sorry, Christian Kirk.
You know, he was my guy in the offseason.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But no, so I think, coming into the regular season, there was a lot of question marks around the Detroit Lions offense, and not just were they going to be good, but who was getting the target share. You added Jamison Williams, you had DJ Chark, you still have DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson, right? A lot of options, even Jamal Williams. Like, you got a lot of options flying around on that offense, and so there was questions for me whether Amon-Ra was going to be able to bust onto the scene. To be honest with you, a lot of the drafts that I did, I wasn't in the vicinity ADP wise of drafting Amon-Ra, so it wasn't really a question for me in a lot of leagues. But I think it was kind of like if Amon-Ra fell to me or was on the board at a pick where I thought it was okay to pick him, I took him, but otherwise I didn't. And so there just wasn't a lot of talk. But I was more nervous about how many offensive weapons they added in the offseason between Jamison Williams, DJ Chark, and how all of that was going to work together. And it's clear that Amon-Ra is the guy. When it's 3rd and 4 and they need a first down, Amon-Ra is the guy. They need a touchdown in the red area, Amon-Ra is their guy. So they're going to go to him. Chark is a good little addition to the offense, but I think he's going to essentially pull most of that pressure off Amon-Ra and open up opportunity for him. He'll continually have a good target share. And I think this week against the Commanders, he's got a really good opportunity of scoring around 20 points in PPR.
Yeah. You were more on the Amon-Ra train than I was. I wasn't crazy about Amon-Ra in the offseason, but so far looks like he's been showing me wrong at least.
Josie. I like Amon-Ra. Number 2 is Allen Robinson versus Atlanta. We know. 2 points.
Dude. I think our first show of the week last week, or the second one, our Thursday night preview for week 1.
Yeah.
We were so high on Allen Robinson.
Oh my God, we talked him up.
Yeah, we did. I'm pretty sure you had a quote that was something along the lines of I would be shocked if he didn't have a monster week, and then he got 1 fantasy point.
To be fair, I was existentially shocked.
Absolutely, and I was too. I said Allen Robinson was one of my favorite. I tweeted before the game that I'm ready for him to explode, and then he got 1 fantasy point. So we were both very wrong about Allen Robinson last week, and here we are, week 2. Our second start of the week, Allen Robinson against Atlanta. Oh
my God, I know. I think Atlanta, or not Atlanta, the Rams had a lot of trouble offensively as a whole. And the only thing really that was working was throwing it to Cooper Kupp. And even that, to some extent, wasn't really helping the offense, just over-targeting Cooper Kupp. So obviously Cooper Kupp had a good day, but you got 10 points from Stafford, basically 0 from Cam Akers. Henderson did all right. Allen Robinson obviously had 2 fantasy points. And honestly, he was 1 touchdown catch. I don't know if you remember the one that they threw it to him and he tried to catch it over a guy and dropped it in the red zone.
I don't think I remember this.
Yeah, so he had a target in the end zone that he had to go up and catch over a guy, and he just ended up dropping it. But had he caught that, it would have changed the whole week. We wouldn't even have been talking about Allen Robinson.
We might have still, because he only had 2 targets.
A 21. Yeah. But it would have been a lot less. It would have been 11-point game, and you would have been all right, that's fine. He can get the targets later.
Right.
But there's a couple of really good things for Allen Robinson going into this week that you can be okay with. Cam Akers, I was and we didn't really talk too much about this game, but I'm very concerned about Cam Akers. He had 3 rushes. He only had a 20-something% snap percentage. He was basically non-existent in the football game, and it was clear that Henderson was the workhorse, and there's concerns there. That is an area where I'm Cam Akers is, if I had him, he's coming out of my lineup for Hendo, and I have no hesitation. I have them both in a league, so I would swap those guys out. But he's coming out of my lineup regardless until he shows that he can get an increased workload on the Rams, at least splitting with Henderson before I consider starting him again. But Allen Robinson was out there for 100% of the snaps. He ran a route on 96% of his snaps. He just wasn't targeted. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it was because he wasn't getting open or it's because he's an old man, because the takes on Twitter, the people who don't like Allen Robinson were like, whoa, look at this, he just sucks. And it's like, yeah, if he sucked, Sean McVay would not throw him out there 100% of the snaps for 90, like it wouldn't happen. So I think for Allen Robinson, the situation is he's going to get targeted at some point. They're going to scheme things up. I talked about this. I can't remember if I talked to you about this, Rick, one-on-one or on the podcast at one point. But last year, if you look at Robert Woods, he did have a decent week one, and PPR was okay, but he only had 4 targets. And then the next week, after that game, they said, we need to get Robert Woods the ball. Following week, 9 targets. So they're going to get Allen Robinson the ball this week. Sean McVay said they want to get him involved, and they're going to get him the ball. It's going to happen. They'll scheme it up. They'll get him the ball in different situations. It's going to be like a focus in their offense this week. So Allen Robinson, I'm pretty confident in saying this, that he's going to get target share. With that being said, they're playing Atlanta.
So if he if he doesn't do good though 2 weeks in a row, like if all this being said and then he stinks again,
my soul will be ever so crushed.
I will be completely done. I will be so out on Allen Robinson. I will probably never recover.
Oh God, yeah.
If he doesn't have a good week.
Honestly, I need him to have a good week this week because he's my wide receiver too on several teams.
Yeah, that's fair. I have him in a league, I think, as well that we're both in. So,
but this game again, I think everything I just laid out, he's definitely going to get more target share. I don't see how they don't target him, especially when they paid him. Like this isn't like Allen Robinson's just dead and he's not going to get targets. Like at some point when you're running 96% of your route on 96% of your snaps and you come out there for 100% of your snaps, like you're going to get targeted. It's going to happen.
Yeah. So
this week against Atlanta is a good week for that because Atlanta blows and they give up a lot of fantasy points to everybody. So I think if there's any week for Allen Robinson to bounce back, show people why he can still do it, and be a good wide receiver in the NFL, it's this one against Atlanta.
I mean, you pretty much said everything that needed to be said.
Because Allen Robinson's my guy.
You could tell he's your guy.
I talked for like 20 minutes about Allen Robinson.
But yeah, I think, like you said, the thing that caught my eye, I would say, was the McVay comments. Because when he was asked about Akers, he wasn't like, oh, we got to get Cam's one of our best players. We got to get him the ball. He was like, no, he needs to play better. He needs to play with more urgency when he's on the field. When they asked him about Allen Robinson, he said Allen is certainly somebody that needs to be more involved and get more opportunities. So that means that they're going to give him more work. I mean, I would be shocked twice, if he doesn't. But yeah, I think he's going to get the opportunities. And as you said, if he gets the opportunities against Atlanta, kind of like I don't want to say it's a revenge game because it's nothing to do with Atlanta, but the Rams got embarrassed on their home field opening night. I think they're going to come out with some urgency in week 2. So I would expect Robinson to have a pretty solid game. And even though he had a bad week, I'm okay with starting him.
And what it looked like too, if you slap on the game film, there was a lot of like He was open in a lot of situations, especially when it was because they really weren't getting a whole ton on the ground, and those play action plays when he was doing a crossing route across the field, he was open. So I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Allen Robinson. It sucks that week 1 it didn't happen, but it's a weird football game. Game 1, drop the banner. The team who drops the banner, they're always jazzed up.
Yeah.
You see Odell was
when
there?
Stafford was in trouble, he was just throwing a cup. What did you say about?
I said, did you see Odell was there?
I saw a little bit of that. Yeah,
I was like, oh, okay.
I saw it.
1,000% he's coming back.
I saw something that he said like, I'm gonna join the winner of the game or something like that.
Well, that's
And then the Bills destroy him.
Yeah, there's that. Anyway, all right, let's talk about the next guy. A.J. Dillon versus the Chicago Bears. Rick, why don't you give us your thoughts on A.J. Dillon?
A.J. Dillon is somebody we talked about in the offseason as a guy who is going to split work with Aaron Jones. He had more carries last year than Aaron Jones, I believe, and he slowly, as the season went on, got more involved. And then against Minnesota, he had the highest snap percentage, and he had more targets, which I did not expect than Aaron Jones. So it seems like A.J. Dillon, he didn't have a higher snap percentage, but he did have the more targets, and he had more total touches because he had 10 carries. So it seems like they want to get A.J. Dillon involved equally as amount or the same amount as Aaron Jones, which in that case, you drafted Aaron Jones in the second round, and you probably got A.J. Dillon like the fifth or sixth. That's pretty good.
Right.
He was pretty efficient on the ground, and we know what he can do on the ground. We know what he can do in goal line situations, short yardage. We know that he's the solid physical running back. What surprised me was how involved he was in the pass catching. I think we talked about again in the offseason that he might be more involved this year in pass catching because of the Packers receiver situation. But I didn't expect 6 targets, 5 catches for 46 yards. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And if he does that again this week against Chicago, I would expect him to get the same amount of work. He had 20 fantasy points this past week, and he probably could do it again this week against Chicago, which is an even worse defense than Minnesota. Don't get yourself fooled that they had a great game against San Francisco in week 1, because, like I said, that game was a literal hurricane that I've said before.
I'm not
the Bears defense. I don't want to hate on the Bears defense because it's not bad, but it's not that good.
I hope the Bears win this football game.
I'm rooting for the Bears. Yeah, me too.
Because I would love to see it was honestly this is probably how people felt when Brady was in New England fighting with the coaching staff on the sidelines. It was great watching Rodgers collapse. I spent several times watching my screen laughing and going, "You got 16 more games, buddy. Plus the playoffs if you make it that far."
Did you see the Bears celebration too when they won?
Oh yeah, they slid.
The whole team was acting like they won a playoff game, and then
so that shows you the state of both teams. But
no,
AJ Dillon, they definitely when what's his name talked about, the head coach talked about the 1A to Aaron Jones's 1A.
Yeah, the 1A to the 1A.
It was true, and I think on a week-to-week basis, it's going to be hard to figure out which running back is which is why I would never own both on the same team, but I would own either or. But it's clear in the first game that A.J. Dillon wins out. He had 34% of the touches in this game, which is great. And then they're going up against the Bears, who before Elijah Mitchell got hurt last week, he had 6.8 yards a carry. So a small sample size, but if their rushing defense is as bad as it was in this game, I think that A.J. Dillon could have a field day, as well as Aaron Jones, against the I would start both of these guys, by the way, but against this team. And I think Dillon is definitely going to be the guy. He could probably get 15 to 20 points again this week. So I wouldn't take him out of my lineup. I just keep rolling with him until he burns you. So and not to mention that as much as I think we both want the Bears to win this game, I think the Packers probably will. And if they're winning in the second half, they're going to just feed A.J. Dillon the ball on the ground. Yep. All right, so that was a pretty fast start segment if you take out the 10-minute monologue about Allen Robinson.
Gotta get in your guys though.
Yeah. Number 1 on this sits list is Robert Woods this week at Buffalo. Last week we saw outside of Cooper Kupp, who obviously is an otherworldly wide receiver, pretty much everyone going up against Buffalo was a bad start. And I think that was partially due to what the Rams were doing, but I think that's also partially due to Buffalo just being an elite defense in the NFL, which we knew was going to happen. Robert Woods last week, he had 2 targets too? Is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
And so everyone was saying he was the wide receiver 1 in the offense, and I saw them trying to get the ball to Treylon Burks a little bit more than Robert Woods. So combining the lack, because I don't think he's going to get 2 targets a week. I definitely think they brought him there for a purpose. He's going to get targets. Like Robert Woods is going to be fine if you drafted him. And I think he'll provide something. It's just this particular game, for whatever reason, the Titans just didn't get him the ball. So I think at some point, Robert Woods is going to get target share and he's going to have that. I just think this week is not the week to bet on it if you want to start him in your flex, because he's playing Buffalo. And it's going to be very tough sledding for him to get any sort of fantasy points. And if they're drawing up plays specifically for Treylon Burks to get him the ball in this game, then Robert Woods is just basically going to be a decoy and get 5 targets and completely burn your team. So I would leave him out of my starting lineup if you can.
This is an unfortunate one because I was so high on Woods in the offseason.
Yeah.
And after one game, usually I'm not trying to overreact.
You do.
I'm pretty mellow. Try to be, pretty mellow with a lot of guys.
He texted me when Cam Akers didn't get any snap, and he said, "I'm done."
Yeah, well, except Cam Akers. But Robert Woods is on the level of Cam Akers for me.
Yeah.
Like I saw a little bit of this game, and then I went back and looked at some of the stuff, and I was like, "Oh man, it was tough to see." Because not only Treylon Burks was more involved than Robert Woods.
Yeah.
Kyle Phillips was heavily involved, and seemed like Ryan Tannehill's favorite target. The Twitter darling from training camp, rookie slot receiver, had 9 targets. And he was involved in a lot of the passing work. Woods, I don't think he gets 2 targets, but if he's the wide receiver 3 on a team that's honestly, in my opinion, overrated. I thought they were overrated going into the season, and it doesn't look like they're going to be that great. And I don't think their offense is that great. That's not a good look. And now you're playing Buffalo, who might have they do have probably a top 10 defense in the NFL. I'm out on Robert Woods. I'm not starting him really the rest of the season unless I have to, or he proves me wrong and starts playing well. But I'm kind of out on him.
Okay. Number 2, Dameon Pierce at Denver. Rick was a little hesitant on putting him on this list. Why don't you explain your hesitancy and why he should be a sit this week?
It's not a bad one, and that's why I wasn't like he can't be on the list. I'm just a little concerned because Lovie Smith, who I don't know if he's really all for coaches talk or coaches speak or whatever, he said that he wants to get Dameon Pierce more involved, and they have to get Dameon Pierce more involved. And he said, quote, we need to get Dameon more touches, was the exact quote. So I think he will be more involved this week. And the 29% snap percentage is pretty low. I was surprised by that. Rex Burkhead got a lot of work, but it is at Denver. Seattle somehow kind of torched him, Geno Smith. But Denver's defense isn't that bad. And Dameon Pierce, the problem is even if he does get more work, I don't think he's going to get a lot of the pass catching. I think that's going to stay to Burkhead. So if he gets like 15 carries, he better get a touchdown and be efficient with those 15 carries because I don't think he's getting like 5 or 6 targets. He's probably going to only get like 2 or 3. So a lot of what he does has to be strictly on the ground. And I'm not sure that you want to trust that in your starting lineup and especially half PPR and PPR leagues.
I'll close my eyes if it's like Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
In a PPR format and just be like, all right, whatever. He's going to get 25 rushing attempts.
Right, exactly.
For Dameon Pierce, like if he's not getting pass catching work and he barely has the rushing work, he has a very low floor. Now, if you were smart, you drafted him in the 10th round and 9th round and didn't buy into this 4th, 5th, 6th round hype.
Well, if you drafted when we drafted the week of the NFL season, you weren't getting him unless it was like the 5th round.
So I think it was already a shoddy investment to do that. And now, like you look at Dameon Pierce and didn't provide week 1 and now everyone's like, frick.
Right.
It's not fantasy football. It isn't that hard.
Yeah, you don't need to draft Dameon Pierce. I think I saw him in the 3rd round in some leagues, which was wild.
But yeah, so like even if they get him more opportunity, what does that look like? You had the chance. Typically you have a veteran running back in the backfield and you have a rookie running back come in, and the veteran running back will always start. And then eventually at some point that work will be ceded to, especially in game one, that'll be ceded to the rookie running back, which in some extent it was. But, Houston was in a chance to win the game. It wasn't a shootout, but they were throwing the ball a lot, and like Dameon Pierce just wasn't involved. And I think if this team is playing from behind like they're going to, I just don't see how Dameon Pierce is going to have a whole heck of a lot of opportunity rushing on the ground, especially if he doesn't have the pass catching work. So there's concerns here for me. Denver, obviously, they didn't have the best week against Seattle in terms of stopping the run. When Rashad Penny got the opportunity to rush it, he looked good. So I don't know if that's a Penny thing or if that's a Denver defensive line thing, but
we might find out this week.
We'll find out this week. But I think with all the pieces combined, I don't think Dameon Pierce is a drop, and I don't think he's a trade away. Hold him, wait,
I
see
agree
what
with that. Yeah.
But for this week, I don't want to ride him in my starting lineup because I just don't know what it looks like. I don't know if he's going to get the opportunity. I don't know if he's not going to get the opportunity. I don't know if what the coach is saying is going to be true. I don't know if what the coach is saying is going to be false. So to me, because of the uncertainty and the variables surrounding that, I would say Dameon Pierce is a sit this week.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Number 3, we have Breece Hall. This guy's
Breece Hall.
This is your boy Rick.
Well, yeah, a little bit.
Sort of, kind of. He is playing the Cleveland Browns this week. This is an interesting one because Michael Carter seemed to come out in game 1, who is, this is his second year in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
So he's by no means. I just talked about the veteran stuff. Rex Burkhead's like 32. Michael Carter is not old. He is his second year in the NFL. He came out as the starting running back in this football game, and he had 55% of the snaps, or somewhere around that.
60 technically.
Was it 60?
Yeah.
So he out-snapped Breece Hall's 45% snap percentage. Now, the good thing for Breece is that he had 9 targets, and I don't think that's going to change. In PPR formats, that's great. I love it. I like it a lot, and I think you'll be fine with him as a second running back or a flex option rest of season, especially if he starts getting that rushing work. I think the talent of Breece Hall will win out the job. I just think at this point in the season, I don't know that the Jets are going to... Like, this seems to me like a football game against Cleveland where it's going to be close, right?
It's going to be low scoring.
Low scoring. And Michael Carter, if he's the rushing back, is going to get a lot of work. So I don't think that Breece Hall is a comfortable start. But if he plays more than 50, if he plays 60% of the snaps, I could totally see him scoring like 13, 14, 15 fantasy points and burning us this week. But against Cleveland, a tougher matchup. The lack of opportunity that he's going to get this week, I don't know that I want to roll him in my lineup just yet. If you have to, you have to. Rick is in a situation where he has to. There's no other running backs available. But if you have the opportunity to sit him for somebody else, I'd do it because I don't think we're going to get what we think we're going to get out of Breece Hall.
I mean, that's fair. Yeah, unfortunately I have one league where I have Cam Akers. And I just so happen to also have Breece Hall in that league. So I'm stuck with choosing one to play at my other running back spot. So I'm going to start Breece Hall. But, yeah, if you do have better options, I agree. His ceiling is capped right now. But I don't think anything we saw in week 1 was anything that I didn't expect to happen.
Yeah.
If anything, there was more positives, which was that target share. But that's not going to continue the rest of the season. That's because Joe Flacco just dumps it off. If Joe Flacco doesn't get through his first read, his next read is dump off to running back.
Yeah.
So that's good as long as Flacco is still starting, which he will be this week. So I think Breece Hall has a good floor, but his ceiling is definitely capped because he is going to be splitting with Michael Carter probably for the first couple weeks of the season at least until Breece Hall The only way he takes over is he's going to have to start having some big plays. I think like if you saw an 80-yard run for a touchdown,
Yeah,
a couple big runs here and there. Like as the season goes on, they're going to start switching. But the preseason or when they announced the depth chart to start the season, it was Michael Carter was the starter. All the reports from the offense coordinator said their offense runs through Michael Carter. So I didn't expect Breece Hall to get more work than Carter. But again, 9 targets is good.
Why spend a draft pick in the second round on a running back?
I have no idea. I don't. It doesn't make sense. But he still got 10 fantasy points. And against Cleveland, though, Cleveland might be a better defense than Baltimore. You can make the argument. Cleveland's defense is very good. So I am a little nervous in terms of that.
Yeah.
So
good.
Again, I think he's going to do okay because Joe Flacco's going to dump it off to him. He's going to get a couple receptions, but I don't know if he does anything really on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. There you go. Starts and sits. Week 2. We have one more episode this week. Buys and sells.
Yeah.
For week 2. Players you got to target in trades. So be sure to check that out. Use the starts and sits advice wisely. And enjoy your night. See you later, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.